episode of Let's Celebrate, a Holiday Origins podcast. I'm your host, Rusty Brown, and today we're celebrating Mabon, also known as the Autumnal Equinox. Each episode includes a CeLibation that's a themed cocktail that goes along with the holiday that we're celebrating, so you can make it at home and celebrate along with me as you listen. So tonight's in theme of the autumnal flavors, I chose a Pumpkin Spice Latte Martini. I don't have a martini glass, so this is the closest thing that I have. So to make this, I used 3 ounces of strong coffee. You can use espresso if you have it. 2 ounces of coconut milk, and you can use any kind of milk, and 1 ounce of a pumpkin pie simple syrup, and a shot of rum. And so I just shook it up in a shaker and strained it into my glass. Yeah, that's right. Delicious. For last month's episode, we celebrated Lunacid and Llamas. Did you do anything to celebrate? Have you started to prepare for the darker months ahead? Did you maybe throw a Lunacid or Llamas party with your friends, or did you do some kind of ritual? I would love to hear your celebratory stories, and you can email me those at letscelebratepodcast@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram, and that is also at Let's Celebrate Podcast. Or you can watch these, there are videos that go along with these podcasts, so you can watch those on YouTube if you don't have Spotify. You can also watch the videos on Spotify if you didn't know that. My YouTube is youtube.com/@Let's-Celebrate-Podcast. So for Lunacid this year, I celebrated alone because I don't have anybody here that or even knows what Lunacid is. I kind of created my own ritual by creating a vision board, and I did like a candlelight yoga practice that ended with a meditation where I focused on gratitude, and I created the vision board to plant the seeds that I hope to see come to fruition in the future during these darker months ahead. And I also was like very mindful about creating a meal before I did all of that, where I incorporated fresh local produce and meat for my dinner that night. So I tried to kind of like incorporate like pieces of what I discussed in last episode, but I just kind of made it my own kind of thing, just focusing on the themes like gratitude and abundance and embracing the darkness and taking part of the harvest, taking part like eating it, I mean. So now on to this episode. Today we're celebrating Mabon, that's also known as the Autumnal Equinox. And this is the second of 3 harvest festivals that are celebrated in the Wheel of the Year. It's the completion of the harvest that began on Llamas or Lunacid, which I discussed my last episode, and it usually falls between September 21st and the 23rd, and this year it's this Sunday, September 22nd, in 2024. So a little history about Mabon. Mabon's modernly celebrated on the autumn equinox and is considered the first day of autumn in the northern hemisphere. It is also the second day when the day and the night are of equal time, the other one being the spring equinox. So that's what equinox means, is like equal night, equal day. So as I mentioned in the Wheel of the Year episode I did in May, I think. Um, the name Mabon has actually only been used since like the mid 1970s when Aidan Kelly, a prominent Wiccan author, when he gave the Autumnal Equinox a name after researching several different myths and things like that, and he chose Mabon for a god, Mabon, who I have a little bit more information about it here in a little bit. But the Celtic fire festivals historically only included the cross-quarter celebrations, which are Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasid, and Samhain. But over the past several years, I've been seeing more people using Mabon for this celebration. It's also kind of like, from what I've researched, ancient people may have only celebrated the 4 cross-quarter celebrations. There are some people who have the opinion that the equinoxes and the solstices weren't actually celebrated in like ancient past. There are harvest festivals and things like that, but they didn't always line up directly with the equinox and the solstices. It might just be like around that time of the year, whereas they did have like a set kind of calendar for the cross-quarter celebrations. The Mabon, the god, is linked to the sun and gets its name from Welsh mythology. And he was the son of Modron, the earth mother goddess and the child of light. Mabon is the time when the sun's power is beginning to wane and we turn inward to prepare for the cold and the darkness that's coming. And then Mabon is often seen as the time of honoring the season's changes and giving gratitude for just the harvest and its abundance, and also giving thanks for the fruits of the labor. And all of this kind of was done both literally and metaphorically. In Greek mythology, there's Persephone, the goddess or queen of the underworld, who's also the goddess of spring and nature. And at this autumnal equinox, she was believed to make her descent into the underworld to reemerge at Beltane when spring begins. Her mother, Demeter, was so grief-stricken over Persephone's abduction into the underworld, and her grief is believed to be the reason that the seasons change and plants begin to wither and die at this time of the year. Historically, this equinox is the end of the harvest season for many places in the northern hemisphere, and it was a time for celebration, for reflection, for thankfulness, and joy. The ancient people were harvesting their fruits and vegetables and preparing for winter at this time, so this festival was a reminder of sorts that the darker days were nearing. They would have also been butchering animals to process and cure the meats to last the winter. They would also be using grains and fruits to make beer and wine, and preserving the other fruits and vegetables that they were able to. To me, as I was reading about this, I kind of got the idea that this time of the year is kind of like how we do it now, where we have like harvest festivals in the community and things like that. They're not exactly like on the spring equinox, not the spring equinox, the autumn equinox, but kind of around the equinox, but it might not exactly fall on it. But it's kind of like this time of the year is a reminder of these themes of thankfulness and abundance and connecting to the earth and being, just having an overall attitude of gratefulness. At this time of the year, it's a good reminder of that we need to give thanks for these things that the earth is giving us. So people would have celebrated this in the past as a commemoration of a plentiful harvest, and it's been celebrated throughout history with different cultures, from the Greek, the Irish, the British Isles, Bavarians, Native Americans, Chinese, and the Druids, and many more, but those are just some to list. All have their own customs, rites, and rituals to give thanks for the harvest at this time of the year. In Greece, this festival was called the Harvest of First Fruits, or a wine harvest in honor of Dionysus, and they would have celebrated the grape harvest by making um, wine, and most likely also drinking a lot of wine. And yeah, and with drinking a lot of wine, you have to have feasts as well. So I'm positive they also had feasts. So yeah, just drinking a lot of wine and feasting. But I'm not a historian. Across the British Isles and Ireland, a common ceremony was the symbolic cutting of the final sheaf, and they would do this by braiding the sheaf into like a doll, basically the likeness of a woman, and decorate her with gown and with ribbons, and then they would hang her from a pole that was believed to be like a phallic fertility symbol. Scotland also had a final sheaf ritual that required the eldest female at the ceremony to cut it. That's because the final sheath was also referred to as the maiden or the hag, to represent the Celtic goddesses' two faces, one of life and one of death. In Christian Europe, they celebrated the autumnal equinox as the feast of the Archangel Michael during medieval times. Some English churches still celebrate this holiday today. In China, Mabon falls on the moon's birthday. They would celebrate by baking cakes of harvested rice to honor the moon. In Nigeria, the Yoruba people celebrated the Yam Festival with dances for their ancestors and crop fertility rituals. The Iroquois people, I believe that's how you say that, give thanks for the ripening of the grains with a corn dance each fall. In many of the cultures that I looked at, it basically was people gathering for a celebratory feast to give thanks to the gods and deities who they believed assisted with the harvest, and to ask good luck through the winter. This festival is a showing of appreciation for the earth's blessing, a sharing with others to stay in the gods and goddesses' good graces throughout the winter months, and it may have been similarly celebrated like our American Thanksgiving, with feasting and the same kind of flavors, the same colors. Yeah, it's just a Thanksgiving adjacent. It's now actually considered the pagans' Thanksgiving, and many of the blogs and things that I read talked about it's the pagan Thanksgiving. Also, since the autumn equinox generally brings colder weather, many people would begin eating more heartier foods like potatoes, pumpkins, eggplants, squash, and corn, and they would enjoy late autumn fruits and berries like apples, pears, rosehips, elderberries, blackberries, and pomegranates. And like I said, they would be gathering these to have for their feasts, and then they would also be making things, preserving them for the upcoming months ahead. So to now, Mabon's actually a modern Wiccan festival, like I said, that originated in the 1970s. It's considered by many to be the pagan Thanksgiving, like I just said, and it's a reminder to acknowledge balance just as the day and night are in balance on this day, and to bring awareness to the earth's life, death, and rebirth cycles. And it's a celebration of the dualities that exist in harmony at this time of the year, like light and dark, and growth and decay. Many people who celebrate this festival use it as an encouragement to find their own balance, to also work on letting go or letting die the things that no longer serve you, and to make space for new growth to move into the winter and its darkness and its space for introspection. So it seems to me that a lot of people see, like, you're moving with the season. So as like nature is moving through these cycles, they live with the intention of the earth. So as like the things are going dormant, then it gives us time to also come inside to our homes and also get dormant. Instead of being really high energy like you are when you've got lots of sun and you're out doing a lot more things because the weather's nice, when it's cold outside, it's good to come inside. So that's kind of, and also like finding the balance of letting that be your normal instead of the going out and being high energy. It's like a low energy time of the year. But we're just like, this is kind of like the doorway into that because it's the beginning of fall. So this is all just coming to me right now. So yeah, just a doorway into this time of the year where it's getting darker, the days are going to get shorter, and then it's going to be cold, and it's so much nicer to be under a blanket with a hot beverage and reading a good book and not going out and putting on a bunch of clothes and trying to stay warm when it's so cold outside. So anyways, many pagan communities still gather for this festival for a seasonal feast where they share seasonal foods like pumpkins, apples, hearty veggies, and root veggies, and cider, wine, and beer. The feast is seen as an expression of their gratitude for the blessings of the harvest. Oh. This is probably where I got that idea. The modern rituals for Mabon have an emphasis on being in harmony with nature, acknowledging the cycle of life and death, and focusing on balance in self and earth, along with the spirit of being together and giving thanks, and also giving back to others and to the earth. So kind of like what I saw was that the rituals that we see associated with Mabon are more about the intention that you set rather than the action itself. So you do these things like having the feast or the being more in harmony or balance kind of rituals, or acknowledging cycle of life and death kind of rituals. It's when you're doing the ritual, you set the intention. I hope that makes sense. Activities like apple picking is a way that people gather with friends for Mabon. And as they pick the apples, they use time to reflect on what apples symbolize, like abundance, knowledge, and the cycles of life and death. They also take time to offer gratitude to the trees and the land for providing the apples. Depending on where they're located, some people may also do a similar kind of ritual at a pumpkin patch. Then the fruits that they collect, they bring home and either use for cooking or baking, or use them as decor or part of their Mabon altar. So this is kind of what I was saying, like you go to an apple field and you set the intention to focus on the symbols of abundance and knowledge and cycle of life, and then you do the ritual of giving gratitude to the land and the trees, and you're setting an intention, but like you're also doing the action, but the action is kind of like a reminder for the intention. It's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. Some people still preserve or can their produce from the summer, or make wine or beer at this time of the year to have their summer produce and flavors through the winter. Many people also have a Mabon bonfire. Since this is part of the wheel of the year, many of these holidays are celebrated with a bonfire, Watching the fire consume the wood is a symbol for life, death, and the rebirth cycle, and the transformation that the earth is going through right now. As you watch the fire burn up the wood, you can see the transformation, you can see the life, you can see the death, and you can see it being reborn into something new, a bright burning fire. Some see it as a sort of welcome for the dark half of the year that's coming upon us. There doesn't seem to be a right or wrong way to have a bonfire for Mabon. It can be done alone or communally. Some people have a ceremonial fire lighting or choose to burn things, or maybe just intentions that they hope to release. Some people sing, dance, or play instruments around the fire to express their gratitude. So anything that you're feeling. People nowadays also decorate their homes for Mabon with seasonal items like colorful leaves and acorns, the cornucopia, pine cones, apples, and pumpkins. So yeah, it's like seasonal items found in nature you bring into your home. That is also another theme of a lot of holidays. You're just going outside and bringing nature into your house. And nowadays a lot of people do that artificially, but it used to be more common to actually go outside and collect sticks and stones and things and bringing that into your house, pumpkins and beautiful leaves and nuts and whatever you can find out there. The colors that are now associated with Mabon are the autumnal earth tones like deep green, dark red, burnt orange, dark yellow, brown, copper, gold, and bronze. For me, a lot of years I have celebrated the fall equinox in some sort of way. It's never been intentional, but it always seems like a time of year when I feel like I need something. Like I can feel the change of the season. I usually get a cold, which even though the weather is different here, it's like I always get sick every single change of the season. Like 3 or 4 times a year. I know when this time of the year is. I don't know why that is. And for me, I really like to bake my first pumpkin pie of the season. It's usually around that time of the year when I can feel kind of like a chill in the air. It's like I get in the mood for those flavors. It's just, yeah. It's like the weather makes you start craving the food. For me, that pumpkin pie is kind of like a celebration of the beginning of fall, but also kind of like a mourning of the end of summer. Because usually it's pretty bittersweet. Like I'm not quite ready for summer to end, but I'm also looking forward to the fall. So it's kind of like for a couple of weeks when the weather is like back and forth, at least in Arkansas, that's how it is. Here it's just hot all the time. So I'm not feeling it as much this year. I have been in the mood for the pumpkin spice flavors. I haven't started putting into my coffee yet, but I feel like it's coming soon. But yeah, I just start getting into the mood of those flavors and the foods and things like that, more squashes. It's interesting when you start paying attention to this kind of stuff. And like I just mentioned, this is the time of the year when the infamous pumpkin spice latte comes out, and many people choose to celebrate Mabon or just this season in general with a pumpkin spice latte, and those flavors have become the epitome of the harvest season. I used to associate those flavors more with Christmas when I was a kid, like cinnamon and nutmeg, those kind of flavors, like a chai tea. The first time I had that, I was like this is Christmas in a cup. But now the pumpkin spice latte moved those flavors up in the calendar. So now I would associate it also with Thanksgiving as well, but I wasn't really associating pumpkin spice anything with even Halloween when I was a kid. Now it's like August and everything's pumpkin spice. Some ways we can incorporate some of these traditions into our celebrations now is embracing balance and giving thanks for life's abundance, seeing it as a reminder of the cycles of the seasons with life, death, and rebirth, and also taking the time to prepare for the darker and more introspective months that are coming up. With balance being a main theme of the equinox, this is a good time to work on personal balance, taking time for contemplation, possibly doing shadow work, to find a balance between who you really are spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. This is obviously a solitary activity that doesn't need to be done in one day, but this holiday can be like a good starting point. It can be like a reminder, or maybe you've never even heard of shadow work. It could just be a good jumping off point if you're feeling like you need to maybe dig a little deeper and like really get to the bottom of some of your issues. You can also decorate your home with autumnal decor. That's a great way to celebrate throughout the entire harvest season. I usually decorate for a general fall feeling with pumpkins and maybe some candles, and some years I've put like some colorful leaves on the table. I used like a tablecloth that had autumnal designs on it. Like what I said earlier, bring in some nature, or go to Hobby Lobby and buy something if that's your thing. But yeah, you can just literally go outside if you've got trees dying and stuff, or if there's nuts or acorns or cool rocks in your area. Go out and find some stuff. Go for a hike out in nature. It's a great way to also connect to the earth and the changing seasons and the earth's energy at this time of the year. And yeah, you can collect items to bring home, and while you're doing that, you can take in nature with all of your senses. Notice the change of the colors in the leaves. Feel the crispness of the air on your skin. Smell the aroma of the fallen leaves and the earth's fresh dampness. And listen to the migrating birds or the crunching of the leaves under your feet. And if it's not too cold where you're at just yet, you can practice grounding by walking barefoot on the earth. I find I like to do this. I've read and watched some things about it, and you're supposed to be able to like feel the energy of the earth, and it's supposed to like a battery re-energize us or something. Yeah, but as the earth is changing and the seasons are changing, walking barefoot also connects you to the changes from day to day. You become more aware of the surroundings around you, the earth that's under literally your feet. Nature walking isn't your thing. You can still go out in nature and do stuff like apple picking or go to a pumpkin patch, and you can do that ritual that I talked about earlier in the episode, to give thanks to the earth and for the trees and the plants for their abundance. Then you can also bring those items home and you can use them in your cooking or in your home decor. A little side note, if you're planning on decorating your home with natural seasonal elements, be sure to bring a small basket or a bag with you on your walk to collect the items that you can use. And yeah, you can use acorns or pine cones, colorful leaves, small stones, cool sticks or limbs. I don't know, whatever you find out there that looks cool. I have a wasp hive dried up that I've kept because it just looks cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have it. And of course, a great way to celebrate Mabon is by having a feast or inviting friends over for just a simple Mabon meal if you're not going to have a grand feast. And you can make it a Dionysus affair and imbibe in a lot of wine if that's your thing. And yeah, be sure to incorporate seasonal foods and beverages and have some kind of gratitude practice incorporated into your feast to give thanks for the bountiful harvest that you're enjoying as you're feasting. And then you could do some kind of group activity with your dinner mates by encouraging everyone to maybe share something that they're thankful for that happened this year. Doing a practice like this with your close friends can lead to meaningful conversations and maybe even a deeper sense with the people that you gather with. You might also want to set a place at the table for ancestors or people that are no longer with you, loved ones that you can't dine with in reality, to symbolize their presence and to honor their contributions to your life. Since Mabon's a time of Thanksgiving, giving back to the earth is a way to complete the cycle of giving and receiving. So this embodies the sacred balance of the season. Making offerings to the natural world is a meaningful way of giving back to the earth. Obviously, you need to use items that are biodegradable and safe for wildlife, since the offerings you're going to be giving will be used by the earth and the creatures that inhabit it. So this could be seeds or nuts, grains, fruits, or even homemade goods. Or you can even save food after your feast and just leave those outside as your offering, as a way of giving back to the earth. I mentioned in last month's episode that the Lunicid Festival was a time to make the move on a project you were in the process of doing, and Mabon is when you can assess the results of your actions. Should you keep moving forward, or do you need to reassess and possibly change directions? With this equinox being the beginning of fall, it's a good time to finish up any summer projects you might have left undone, clean up the garden, close up your pool, put away tools, and anything that might have been left out from your summer projects. Maybe even clean your home to get ready for the new season. Maybe do an energy cleanse if that's something you're into, just to start the fall season in a peaceful and calm, clean home. And of course, with all of the Wheel of the Year festivals, a bonfire is a simple way to commemorate this holiday. You can do it as small or elaborate as you want. A fire can bring warmth and light to the night as it begins to grow darker and longer. A fire can also be an opportunity for reflection and to release the things or the ideas or the intentions that you no longer need. However you end up celebrating this Mabon or autumnal equinox, I hope that you are showered with abundance throughout the rest of this harvest season. I will be back in October to celebrate Samhain, also known as our modern Halloween. If you have enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please like and subscribe, maybe even leave a review or a comment or any kind of communication that you feel comfortable with. Let me know. I would love to hear. Do you celebrate Mabon or the Autumnal Equinox? How are you expressing your gratitude this year? I would love to hear those celebratory stories, and you can email me at letscelebratepodcast@gmail.com, or I have an Instagram page that's at Let's Celebrate Podcast as well. And yeah, comment on my videos, give those some likes, follow me on there if you like this, if you're into it. I have a YouTube page that you can watch these videos on, and like I said, if you have Spotify, you can also watch the videos on Spotify. But if you don't have Spotify, there's YouTube, and that is youtube.com at Let's Celebrate Podcast. And as always, my references are in the show notes if you're interested in reading more about Mabon. Thanks for listening and joining me on this adventure. Have fun celebrating, and I hope you've learned something new today. Stay grateful. Bye.